that sort of leads to the monetary premium idea that I was talking about earlier, because this is not a concept in mainstream economics that people talk
Yeah.
about very much. Certain things having value, above utility. So perhaps just talk to that particular point, when people are talking about something having a monetary premium. What does that actually mean? And I guess how does that relate to Bitcoin?
Yeah. Well, if we go back to the Cantillon effect example, when you kind of think of money being introduced into an economy, new units of money, and if you are someone trying to take advantage of the market, where would you inject that new money to get the most benefit for yourself? And what you would do, because money itself, fiat money, fails to hold its value over time by design, you're going to put it into things that preserve your value the best you can with the
Mm,
choices you have available to you. Housing has previously, and I used to live in Australia, now I live in Canada. So I say previously because for a lot of people, it's become just not a possibility. Housing was something that was available to the most number of people because the most number of people had access to mortgages. So many people, like you said, would use housing or real estate as their savings account because if they had saved in fiat, housing just kept getting further and further away from them. So anything that continues to get further and further away from you relative to your monetary unit is likely accruing a monetary premium. And that is people are using it as a store of value because the money itself is broken and not doing its job. So, you can look around. It could be fancy watches, bottles of wine. You look at the art world. So things that appreciate in value disproportionately when new units of money are introduced into an economy. Usually that's a sign that they are attracting a monetary premium. And, the hope with Bitcoin is that Bitcoin is such a superior money because it is purely monetary premium. It doesn't really have, it's useful, but you kind of think of it as drinking the milkshake or sucking that monetary premium out of other assets just because Bitcoin's a preferable place to store value. Whether it's to do with its transferability, censorship resistance, maybe it's more liquid. So, yeah, be careful what you save in is really the lesson.
yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if this is something you mentioned in the book or something I read recently too, where once we've crossed over like a threshold where something is like widely recognized as being a better technology, there's no one's going backwards. So like it wasn't as if like
Yeah,
we got the car and then some people were like, well, let's just hop on horses sometimes. Like it just didn't happen that way. Like once we found something much
yeah,
better. So you wonder like at what point Bitcoin crosses that threshold, and starts materially draining capital from the $900 trillion global asset market, particularly when you think that there's a lot of negative yielding bonds, well, in real terms, I
mm,
guess. You
mm,
think to yourself, I'm struggling to see the value proposition of holding government debt that's lower than that gives me a coupon rate lower than inflation rate. I mean, it's like a return free risk, as it were.
yes,
I
yeah,
think as Greg
yeah.
Foster said, you know what I mean?
Well, and you've hit the nail on the head in terms of the process that a lot of Bitcoin maximalists have gone through, and that is it's not ideological; it's just a process of elimination. You know, they've gone through real estate, they've gone through bonds, they've looked at every other potential, I guess, investment or savings vehicle, whatever you want to call it, and they've looked at the opportunity cost, and Bitcoin has just been the best choice from an engineering perspective. So with the least risk.
Mm.
So yeah, it's unfortunate that people's time has to be spent doing that activity because in an ideal world or under a sound money standard, money just performs that task.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah, it's funny because I had a long chat with my uncle recently who was down, and he was saying, okay, maybe I'll get on board, Bitcoin, but why why does it have to be such a big percentage? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's wrong with stocks? And even my father-in-law is like, I, you know, don't you think that the average person should just be putting the money in the S&P 500? And I think my response was along the lines of like, yeah, if you don't know what Bitcoin is, I don't think you should be investing much in it because you're going to have a heart attack when it goes through its
Mm,
inevitable
hmm.
declines because it's
Yeah.
horrible. If you're not equipped to be able to handle the volatility, you'll be shaken out and you'll probably be scared to get back in the water. And that's why people are going study Bitcoin, not just buy
Yeah.
Bitcoin, because it's not really that constructive in the bigger picture.
Yes. Yes.
When we're talking about that monetary premium being drained from all these other things that perhaps don't have as much utility, whose value proposition isn't as compelling, it's not as scarce, all those types of things. And let's imagine there's 900 trillion today, maybe it's more, maybe it's less. What do you like if you were to put a number on it? Like, how big do you think Bitcoin's total addressable market could be? I mean, I
Yeah.
throw out 100, Anil, because I just like the number, but I don't know if that's got any validity in
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah. I don't have a clue, but what I do know, and a really helpful exercise to go through, is think about all the different pies out there. The line I like to use is Bitcoin takes many slices from many different pies. So you could just look at the products and services that are out there now. So, think of the credit card fold, basically, earning rewards in Bitcoin. So that's a huge business in itself, credit card rewards points. At a certain point, any reasonable person will prefer to have Bitcoin than some loyalty point or air mile or whatever. At some point, it becomes too compelling not to do that. And you think about life insurance. Okay, do you want a life insurance policy that pays you a fixed fiat amount 40 years from now? Or do you want one that pays you a fixed Bitcoin amount 40 years from now? Which do you think is going to preserve your purchasing power better or, take care of your family better should you pass away? And there's just all these really interesting use cases that Bitcoin is only just starting to penetrate. And, you kind of think of the road or journey that Amazon has been on, and you look at, what, 15, 18 years down the road, AWS just becomes this massive beast in terms of the revenue it provides to Amazon company. So I just think many of the use cases or the dominant use cases of Bitcoin are yet to be fully understood or even realized. So I think Bitcoin will just penetrate all these different markets in very interesting ways, and it'll be very difficult to predict what's kind of going to really pour fuel on the fire. So
That's why I wanted you to come on the show, Neil, because you're measured and sensible. Because I veer on the side of
yeah,
hyperbolic from time to time. Because yeah, I mean, I did not even think about the fold side of things. Like, who wants your petty airline miles? Do you know what I mean? And absolutely, I knew there was something with insurance and Bitcoin because I always thought like, I mean, even if these insurance funds decided to put like 0.5% or 1% of their assets into Bitcoin, what that could actually do to their ability to be able
mm,
to, make payouts and whatever it might be in the future. I mean,
yeah,
there's just so many things, as you say, that are just unknown. Um, I often talk to people as well, like about look at all these intermediaries involved in making payments. Like, when to go watch the fights on the weekend, and because labor's so expensive, you got to scan a QR code, then you got to have some stupid app that just is another bloody middleman, and you go like, oh,
yeah,
who are you? Oh, you want all my information? Okay, put in some nonsense name, and then they clip the ticket. Visa's clipping the ticket, like,
yeah.
and then the bank's involved. There's probably like four parties in this transaction. It's like, are you joking? This could easily be done via Lightning. We don't need this nonsense. So, yeah, maybe I should actually be more measured. I think I'll take that out of this conversation. Hey,
No, but you need the balance, right? You need the
yeah,
balance.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. Maybe like if sort of Max Kaiser and you sort of had a baby, then that'd be the perfect Bitcoiner.
yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.